What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, just having a wonderful day, looking at some prospects, and just can't wait to get to it.
Exactly. Yeah, with us, the format that we kind of use for the free agency stuff, we're going to do the same in this month lead up to the draft, which is we're going to look at each week a position group, and we're going to give you some names in that position group that have intrigued us, or that you might not be thinking about, or guys that we think you need to check out, or what have you. And this week, we're going to start it off with everybody's like favorite part of the field, which is the offense. And this week we're going to look into the skill positions. I got two guys that I think that if y'all haven't taken a look at, you definitely should. And then Jonathan's got a couple guys that definitely should think that you should take a look at if you haven't. So I guess without much further ado, we might as well just go ahead and get into it. So the guys that you have, like, I don't think we did this on purpose, but I actually think it works out pretty well. The guys that you have tend to be found more at the top of the draft in a lot of mock drafts. So they might be a little bit more household names, but just in case they aren't, these are guys that I think are exciting players, and guys that I think that Falcons fans, if you haven't taken a look at, you really should. So Jonathan, if you want to tee up our your first guy on the docket.
All right. Oops. Did I not?
Oh,
there we go.
It is.
So Jamir Gibbs. I mean, this guy's he's not hiding from anybody. He's not under the radar of anybody. He's going to be a guy that everybody is going to know a good deal about. But this is a guy that I know that there's been a lot of talk about. Bijan Robinson, and this and that and the other. And while I do like Bijan, I don't personally feel like he's a guy that we would want to spend that kind of draft capital. I could be wrong. Front office, Fontenot, Smith, they may look at it and be like, we did enough in free agency. Let's just stick to BPA. And if they say BPA and he's the guy that's on the board that is the best player available, they may take
just roll with it.
Okay.
Right.
Just roll with it. Look at initially, will I be a little disappointed? Sure. If the guy balls out like we all think he does and turns into a great, potential rookie of the year kind of situation, be all down with that.
Exactly.
But this guy is I think if you want to look for something to complement what we already have. This guy is not, he's not the super tiny scat back. He does have power to his game.
Right.
But he is much more of he is more of that scat back than Algier is, than Huntley is. But he's got more power than Williams would, right? Avery Williams. Guy ran a really good 4.42. Guy has speed to burn. He played his first couple of years at Georgia Tech. Did pretty well. Still was doing like 6.7-ish yards per carry both years. Just had fewer carries the first year. Second year got more carries, got more yards. Had about the same amount of touchdowns. But then he came back this past year, went into the portal. Got picked up by Alabama and pretty much just took off. Became a household name because you're playing at Alabama and because you're doing it as well as you're doing. This guy is also, he's kind of like that do it all kind of back. He's got to work on some of the things I looked at was like he's going to have to work on, and I think a lot of running backs are going to have to be that way, though some are a little bit better than others. He's going to have to work on his pass blocking,
for sure.
But I don't see that necessarily being a problem for him because he's not 185 pounds.
Right.
This guy is right at about 200 pounds. Will, if not the first year, by year 2, he'll probably put on about 5
5
more
to 10
pounds of
pounds of muscle,
muscle.
I would imagine.
Right. So this guy is not gonna. I don't see a problem with him doing pass blocking. So somewhat of a negative initially. That becomes less of a problem later
Yeah.
on. Go ahead.
Gibbs is a guy who, had like a lot of buzz coming into the summer, going into the season, and then produced on that buzz. I mean, you can see his career stats. We got him up there right now. The what I like about Gibbs is he gives you a lot in like the passing game. You can split him out in the slot. Like he's a guy who I feel like it can, in the long run, like take the place of a Cordell Patterson. Like a year or two down the road, he could take the place of that like gadget player in a sense of being able to split him out, send him out on a route, and it's not just a dump off play.
Yeah.
He catches the ball in the open field and he has the type of speed that he can house it just about anywhere on the field, which is the element that we're missing from Algier. Is the
like he basically makes me think of like the guy he makes me think of is Alvin Kamara.
Right.
Like he's got more power than you think he does. And he's a guy that you get him out into space. He's a really hard guy to bring down one-on-one. Like I said, he's a guy that just has a lot of wiggle to him. But if he needs to, he can lower that shoulder and he can get that extra yard or two if necessary. So,
right. And I think he's a guy who would be a perfect addition to the backfield. If you're good, he's a guy that like he really good potentially could be there at our number 44 pick at the top of the second round. And
yes,
if you went defensive player, whether it's D lineman or cornerback in the first, and you're sitting there looking at BPA in a second, and he's sitting there, you can make a real strong argument that he is the best player available if he's sitting there at the top of the second round.
Well, and so if this is a guy that you're looking for, maybe it's a situation where even like you got 2 guys on your board at 8, whether that's Jalen Carter or Bijan Robinson or Christian Gonzalez or whoever else, right? If you take Bijan Robinson at 8, but you really like this guy, then if there is another team that was willing to take Bijan Robinson at 8, but maybe they were willing to take Bijan at I don't know, 19,
right,
or 20 or something like that. If he's not there, this guy I can see being a late first round pick because now this is the next available guy. Yep. So if you hold off on getting Bijan Robinson in the first round, I think if he makes it to the late teens, early 20s, then you look at a team that picks him up. There's a good chance you may not get another back picked until you pick this guy at 44, if that's the case.
Right.
But you pick up Bijan, and this guy definitely moves up the ladder, and he becomes probably a second running back taken in the first round, and the first time in a while.
Right. Yeah, he is definitely RB2 in this draft. Like 100%, whether that's back end of the first round or top of the second round, he's definitely going to be the second back that comes off the board.
Yeah, but I mean, he looks really good. This guy, like the other good thing is when he, by the time he's drafted, he's only going to be 21.
Right.
So he's not 22, 23 years old coming out of college. He's 21 years old. Doesn't have a ginormous amount of tread on the tires. He basically has as many rushing attempts in his 3 years, as like a year and a half in the NFL.
Right.
So like he has less than half of what you would probably expect in the NFL in a 3-year period.
Yep.
So
I think he's definitely a guy that you could easily slot in. and use them multiple different ways. Now, the guy that I got in the same vein, running back, you're going to be able to get him 4th round, maybe even the 5th. We don't have a 5th round pick, but if we did, I don't think we have a 5th. Could be wrong on that. Anyway, he's definitely like we got 2 4ths, so you could easily grab him with one of those 2. And the guy I got is Israel Abandakanda. He's a running back out of Pitt, and he's a guy that I'm not going to lie to anybody. He caught my attention simply because of his name. Like his last name, Abandakanda. I was like, that is an awesome last name. But then he turned out to actually be a really interesting back. As you can see, he had, 390 attempts for almost 2,200 yards, 2,177, and 28 touchdowns. 20 of those touchdowns came last year. He was Pitt's offense. And he didn't do it just against like the ACC guys. Like he had a 60+ yard run against Tennessee last year. So he's not as powerful as his frame would suggest. He's 5'11", 215 pounds, but he's quick. And that's the part that like intrigues me. He can grind out some yards. So it wouldn't be much of a physical drop off from Tyler Algier, but like Tevin Coleman, if you opened up a hole for him, and he was a one cut and go. That's Israel Abandakanda. Like he'll be a perfect back for a wide zone scheme, because if you open a hole for him, he's gone. Like I said, multiple like 50+ yard runs, which is something that if we're going to lean on the running game as much as it seems to like suggest that we are, like you need some explosiveness. I love Tyler Algier's meat grinder running style. But when he does get out into the open field, he gets tracked down quite a bit, especially if it's more than about a 30-yard run. Well, Abandakanda has the long speed to house it from just about anywhere on the field. I think he would be a perfect, like, to me, I know it's going to sound odd, like Gibbs could almost come in and become like RB1 for us. I think he's very talented in that aspect. I don't know if they're going to necessarily be looking for an RB1. I could be completely wrong. They may feel very strongly about Algier and not necessarily be looking for a running back until later on in the draft. But I wholeheartedly believe that if we don't come out of free agency, by the time we get to the draft, if we haven't signed another running back, we're drafting one.
Yeah.
Like straight up and down. Whether it's Bijan or Gibbs in the first, second round, or there's a host of running backs that you could get in the later part of the draft. It was announced that the Falcons are having an official visit with Tajay Spears, who is an electric little scat back. So they are looking to add speed to that element. They understand that Algier is not a speed guy. That he's that meat grinder kind of guy, the guy that teams don't want to tackle in the fourth quarter, But Abandakanda has the speed and he has some pretty good power. So you don't lose much on the physicality side, but you pick up a lot as far as speed goes, in my opinion. And he would make a perfect like addition to the room and a perfect late round pick, especially if you don't feel like Caleb Huntley is going to be able to come back and be a productive back. So that was my suggestion and I suggest, like, I highly recommend y'all just go watch some highlights of Abandakanda, if nothing else.
Yeah, he's like I haven't watched a ton on him, but what I've seen of this guy, he's been a really good like consistent guy.
Right.
He's a guy that if you block him for like the average running back's going to get 5 yards, he's going to get 6, maybe 7.
Right.
Like he's going to get to that 5 yards, probably get a tackle, get a tackle on him, maybe shakes out of it, but most of the time he'll probably just work forward for another yard or two. He's that guy. He's like a we want to keep pounding him guy.
Yep.
With Algier, and this guy just comes in, and you just basically have a pile driver, just constant,
constant
bam,
moving.
Bam.
And you were talking about like the age with Gibbs. Abandakanda is only 20, so
nice.
That's another like young back who this past season was when he finally got got his full shot to be the full back. So, his attempts are, that's his full career attempts, 390. So he doesn't have a lot of wear on his body as far as he's not like your atypical Bama back from back in the day, to where by the time they got to the NFL, they had 1,000,000 miles on them. And we're already starting to break down. He's not that kind of back. So yeah. I think he'd be a perfect addition to the room. All right, you want to move on to your next guy?
Yes, sir. Bam. Mr. Zay Flowers.
He's a fun one. He's a super fun one.
The only knock I can say is as far as the potential for us drafting him and drafting him where he would need to be drafted most likely, which is going to be like our second round pick. If we don't pick him by the second round, he's probably going to be gone.
Exactly. Yeah, he's the number 44 pick. If you're eyeing Zay Flowers, you're going to have to pull that trigger no later than the top of the second round. He ain't going to be there in the third.
Yeah. And it's just this guy has really good, excellent speed. But the thing that that intrigues me with this guy is like his ability to play the slot.
Right.
So I could definitely envision, if we were to draft this guy, I could envision a scenario where whoever you pick up in free agency or any other wide receivers you would have London out wide on one side, maybe Pitts out wide on the other side. So you got these two giant redwoods on either side. And this guy is your shifty, speedy slot guy that's in the middle. And because he's got really quick feet, guy can stop on a dime and like whip routes. I've seen a couple of times where this guy did a whip route where he basically like stopped and started inside to outside, and it was super quick. Right. And he was back up to speed almost immediately. So he's got that twitch, that shiftiness. He doesn't have the absolute, the absolute top end, like world class 4.3 whatever speed, but he's good enough to get over the top, and he has really good hands. Like from what I saw, he has really good hands. Even mossed a couple guys that were taller than him. Right. Like literally, so that. But the only problem I can see with him is, but just based on what we like and what we know Arthur Smith likes as far as receivers go, he's short. He's like 5'10", 5'10", maybe 5'11" at the outside. Right. But if we have taller guys around him, having him be your kind of smaller, shiftier, and this guy does absolutely amazing when we're talking about crossing, and you get him something in space where he's got a chance to, get him the ball in stride, let him catch it, let him just continue running. And he is, he knows what to do with the ball after catching it, and can make plays after the catch, like super good, like really, really good. And, he's a hard runner too. Like he doesn't go down, he doesn't just go down with
then go down in first contact. Yeah. Okay.
He tries to drive forward and get what he can. But just watching what I've seen of this guy, I could see him being kind of a good counterpoint to everything else we have in the wide receiver room. He's a little bit smaller guy, shorter, but he's got the speed, he's got the shiftiness that could really complement a Drake London and a Kyle Pitts on the outside by moving this guy inside. And he played outside in college. Not 100% sure he'll be able to do that consistently in the NFL just because of his height. But you never know.
But it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility of putting him out there.
Right.
So what he sounds like to me, and what I've taken from what I've seen from him, he seems like an upgraded version of Zacchaeus. Like if you were to take Zacchaeus and inject more talent into him, is what Zay Flowers seems like to me. And also, like you could see right there plainly, over 3,000 yards and over 29 touchdowns. And I don't think anybody could really name me a Boston College quarterback. So if you can have that kind of production, that means that you're doing something in my opinion.
Yeah, like another guy that I'm, as far as a comp goes, to me would be like a slightly undersized version of Calvin Ridley. Like,
okay,
that's what Calvin, because Calvin Ridley, although I'll say this guy tends to be a better blocker than Ridley, tends to be more willing to block and kind of do some of the dirty stuff than maybe Ridley was comfortable doing. So that may endear him somewhat to the coaching staff.
Right.
Whether or not that's enough to get him selected where he would need to be selected for us to get him, don't know. But I will say if we're able to pick him up at 44, assuming that we, get a guy, whether that's Carter or Christian Gonzalez, but if you go defense first round and you want to try to add another weapon to your offense in the second round and he's still available, this is not a bad guy to pick up.
There you go. Yeah, no, he's got a lot of buzz around him, man. I'm excited to see if he lands in Atlanta. He seems like he'd be a good complement to what we already have here. Now, the guy that I picked, completely other by happenstance in a sense, he's going to be 4th round, day 3 guy for sure. 4th round, 5th round kind of guy. But I think he fits the mold a little bit more of what the Arthur Smith has looked for in a wide receiver so far. And that's Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss. Now, he really caught my eye initially down in Mobile. He was making a lot of real good catches, did like red zone drills, things like that. Shifty, had pretty good long speed. Not like elite. He was a 4-5 guy, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a guy who at Ole Miss didn't get a ton of opportunities. He had to sit behind like Elijah Moore and, I know Elijah Moore was there. I'm not sure if he was there with DK Metcalf, but this is the same school that has produced like DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and Elijah Moore. So it wouldn't surprise me that, especially previously coaching AJ Brown, if Arthur Smith didn't look his way, because he's a bigger body receiver. I think 6'1", 6'2", 215. He's a bigger guy, not afraid to block. Saw on the few games that I was able to catch before we did the show, a handful of times where he was lined up almost in like a tight end spot for Ole Miss. When they line the tight ends up detached right behind the line of scrimmage, and as an extra blocker for the run game. So definitely not afraid to try to displace a safety or a corner in the blocking game, which I think is going to be ultimately important for coming here in Atlanta. But he also, this is a knock, but a positive at the same time. He doesn't separate very well.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't separate very well, he's gotten good at contested catches.
Yep.
It's like you would think a guy, like there's times where like when he's lined up in the slot running a seam route, he can get past the DBs, but he doesn't eat up the cushion as quickly as you'd like him to. So a lot of times he's ended up having to, like I said, make a contested catch, which he does on a pretty, he makes more than he drops. So I'm cool there. Plus, the last few years, he hasn't necessarily had the most accurate quarterbacks in that system because Lane Kiffin values a quarterback who can run more than can throw, a la Matt Corral
Yeah.
from last year. And so it's kind of the same deal with who their QB is this year. But Jonathan Mingo is a guy who, like I said, really opened my eyes at the Senior Bowl, and who is a guy who I feel like you could get easily at the in the fourth round, which with even with like what we've done in free agency so far, I don't foresee them like rushing out to get another pass catcher high in the draft after 2 years of back-to-back drafting pass catchers in the first round. But he could easily come in and be your target 4 on this team. I think from day one, and really challenge guys like Bernhardt and Darby for position, because I think he just fits the mold of what Arthur Smith has looked for based on what they brought in free agency last year. All those guys were big body guys. None of them worked out, but you could definitely tell Smith has a type, and Jonathan Mingo looks that part.
Yeah. Like you said, doesn't quite have the quick twitch.
No.
Route running needs to get a little bit better, but like this guy, especially if, like you said, if we're going to take him in like the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th, if he makes it that far, like if we were to take him in those areas, then that's a perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the quick acceleration, but top end, the guy ran a 4.46. So
yeah, he's not slow. And that's the thing, is like, that's what I meant when I said like he didn't eat up the cushion. Like when like the really fast guys who have that crazy acceleration, when a corner is playing off, and like with Julio Jones, how many times did you watch him ball snapped and he's on that corner in a heartbeat and running past him? Like he's past that corner before that corner can really flip his hips. Mingo is not necessarily the guy who's going to, obliterate that cushion before the corner can get, turned around. And that's why I'm saying, like, he doesn't necessarily, for as fast as he is, he doesn't have the acceleration to create separation. But if he does get some separation, he can eat it up, eat up grass. And but his ability to make contested catches, stemming from the fact that he doesn't create separation all that well, could be a boon coming into the league. Because guys like Fitzgerald, like Larry Fitzgerald, and there's some other ones who are thinking, like Anquan Bolden. Those guys weren't like the fastest guys in the world, but they were tough catch. He's more tough than he is fast, so to speak.
Like he needs to, he'll probably need to almost like somewhat incorporate like tight end principles of making sure to use your body
right
to shield guys from the ball, so that it's a contested catch, but the only guy that really that is really contesting the catch as far as the ability to actually catch it is going to be himself. The other thing that maybe because of that, it seems like he's had a little bit of ability, or a little bit of a struggle, not ability, but a little bit of a struggle to remain healthy, which could be a concern. But again, you never know. Guys could go their entire collegiate careers, never have hardly any injuries of note, get to the NFL, can't stay healthy, vice versa could happen. You just never know.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
But yeah, I think, he could be like an interesting prospect, as could in a lot of aspects, as could all these guys, which is why we brought them to you, to enter into the court of public opinion and try to help get y'all up to speed a little more on some guys that you may not be thinking about, or guys that you do think about and you're like, oh yeah, that confirms what I was saying. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us on this skills.
So there's just want to talk about I didn't go into super depth or anything like that, but another guy that would fit in the area that you were talking about, Mingo being selected, that it could definitely be a Jamar Chase Burrow situation as Tyler Scott.
Yeah, Tyler Scott.
I know we've talked about him before.
Yep. Yeah, Tyler Scott could
but
be
he's kind of in the same Zay Flowers boat of 5'9", 5'10". This guy's even less. He's 5'9", 177 pounds.
Yep.
So kind of a tiny guy, but guy runs a 4.4 40.
If I'm going that route,
good speed.
Like I would almost look at Tank Dell, who's another little smaller, shifty guy. But if you bring in Tyler Scott, you bring him in because of the familiarity with Ritter. There's another wide receiver out of Cincinnati that's in the draft this year, and I'm blanking on his name. And I also know there's a tight end, but we haven't really talked about tight ends per se. Because I don't think
Trey Tucker.
Tucker, that's it. Trey Tucker. He's another guy. He's at the back end of the draft. I haven't done.
He's only 5'8".
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like those guys were little. That's why I didn't really even consider them all that much, because given what Smith has shown that he likes in wide receivers, yes, I know there's the familiarity, but I figured that he would probably want to go more for like the bigger body kind of guys, ones who can stand up to the type of offense that he wants to run.
Yeah.
So,
but this guy, like, he's kind of the poor man. This Trey Tucker. He's kind of both. I think both him and Tyler Scott. Not to say either one of these guys couldn't be stars, but they're kind of at this point. I would look at them as kind of like a poor man's Zay Flowers. Yep. Like Zay Flowers is the guy that is going to be at the top of the draft. These guys have similar builds, similar traits. Maybe a little bit undersized compared to him, but but they're in that same boat, and they're just probably 4th, 5th round. But they can kind of all do the same things. While the Trey Tucker and Tyler Scott probably almost exclusively be like slot guys. Don't really think they're going to do a ton outside.
No, I think given those guys, if you had a chance to take Flowers, you'd take him over the other two.
Oh yeah,
just because I think he'd give you more. But at the end of the day, I think these were like 4 guys that cover cover pretty much the entire draft, in a sense of like going from potential 1st round in Gibbs to potential 5th round in Mingo. That pretty much gives you some guys to look at in the entire range of the draft. And that's what we're going to try to do here with this profiling series that we're doing. What's up?
I'll tell you something that kind of surprised me as I was going through looking at some of these different prospects. Kenny McIntosh, 4'6", 240.
Yes.
That seems weird. I don't know. Did he stumble?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it, because his tape does not look like a 4'6" guy.
No,
like his tape looks like a 4'4", 4'5" at most.
Yeah, I've seen that guy like split downfield defenders,
and
I've seen him outrun guys. So I don't know what
some guys just don't test. Yeah, some guys just don't test well, and I felt like I had talked enough about Kenny Mack up to this point, him and Tajay Spears, which is why I tried to bring somebody a little different with the Israel Abandakanda.
Yep.
But both Kenny Mack and Tajay Spears have that speed that would benefit greatly, adding to what Tyler Algier already brings you. And if you wanted to bring in Kenny Mack, because coming from the University of Georgia, that he could pass block like right off the rip. Like they have to be able to pass block to get on the field. So he could pass block. So like, yeah, that 4'6" it was disappointing, but just like with a lot of other things, you can't go by just the testing results.
Yeah.
So his tape to me says he's faster than a 4'6".
Yeah, it just that stood out to me. I'm like, because I'm looking at a lot of these guys. They're like, there's enough 4.4s and there's a couple 4.3s. And then there's a bunch of guys that are like in the 4.5, 4.55, 4.56, realm. And then all of a sudden I get to the number 12 guys, Kenny McIntosh, and it's like 4.62. Like somebody did somebody slap him upside the head going down the track? Like what happened there?
Somebody like acted like they was gonna run out on the track and he swerved a little bit.
That was weird.
I'd have to. I wonder if he reran at his pro day or not, because I didn't see anybody talking about it. But
it doesn't show here. But yeah, that's weird. Yeah. But I'll say this: if we don't go with Bijan or Amir Gibbs, which again, depending on who we pick and what have you, perfectly fine. I don't think we have to go get one of those guys. I think probably the next guy on deck for me would probably be Tyjae Spears.
Yeah, Tyjae Spears, like that kind of speed, because they've alluded to wanting to add more speed to the offense. They've made the statement that they didn't feel like they've had enough. Obviously, with Pitts being out, took a lot away. But I think that adding a guy like a Spears, like an Amanda Kanda, like a Kenny Mack, there's guys out there like Tank Bigsby. I could probably do a whole hour on just running backs. Because there's a lot of them out there. So I know everybody's like, oh, we don't need another running back. We're going to draft one every year. I can almost guarantee you. So that's just how that is. Well, man, I think we have pretty much knocked it out of the park, covered all the bases, all that good fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so as always, Falcons fans, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan?
At Jonathan M. Holder. Come by and say hey.
There you go. And always, keep your eye on the channel. We'll be back live again on Tuesday to do another live stream. And yeah, so just keep your eye on the channel because we always got good fun stuff going. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.